In that unforgettable moment when the tip of Karina's sword first pierced someone's flesh, she herself felt a shock no less than her opponent. The air was filled with a heavy atmosphere of determination and inevitability about the events that had just unfolded before her eyes. Standing behind her back, the guy, haggard and exhausted after the fight, embodied an image of gratitude and admiration. His eyes, full of questions and amazement, searched Karina's gaze, eager to know the name of the one who had come to his aid in his hour of need. Karina gathered her wits and turned to him, a reflection of her own surprise at what she had done flashed in her eyes. The words she uttered in response sounded almost unbelievable even to her own ears. She told the guy about her past, how she was an Olympic gold medalist, an accomplishment she could be proud of in her former world. However, in this new, fantastic world where fate had thrown her, her words sounded more like a magical fairy tale. The Olympic Games, so significant and revered in her homeworld, were but an empty sound here of no importance to her new companions and friends. Just an hour ago, Karina was experiencing the apogee of her athletic achievements, having reached the pinnacle that every athlete dreams of. Standing on the podium, she felt the weight of the 2 gold medals on her chest, symbolizing not only her victory, but also the endless hours spent in grueling training, every hit, every miss, every moment of despair and newfound hope. These medals were the physical embodiment of her dream, proof that all her efforts were not in vain. The tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks were a sincere reflection of the deep emotions that overwhelmed her at that moment. Joy, relief, and endless gratitude to fate for the chance. Returning home with a heart overflowing with a sense of achievement, Karina was determined to celebrate her triumph in a special way. She decided to reread her favorite novel, a source of inspiration that had once encouraged her to take up fencing. This novel didn't just entertain her, it lit a spark in her soul, motivated her to strive for excellence by copying the dexterity and skill of its characters. Immersion in her favorite pages, where dreams and reality intertwined, seemed to her the best reward for all the hardships she had experienced. But her imagination didn't stop there. Excited and full of ideas, Karina decided to write to the author of the novel. She wanted to express her gratitude for the world she created, which became a refuge and a source of inspiration for her during the toughest moments of preparing for the competition. When Karina received a reply from the author of her favorite novel, her heart was filled with indescribable feelings. In the letter, the author not only congratulated her on her well-deserved victory, but also asked for help in writing an epilogue to their shared favorite work. The offer seemed to her both an incredible honor and a tremendous responsibility. The thought that she, Karina, could have a hand in creating a world that meant so much to her made her heart beat faster. However, before she could realize the full range of her emotions and think about what the epilogue would look like, her reality changed drastically. A sudden explosion tore apart the usual course of her life, and in the next moment, Karina found herself in a completely different reality. She woke up in the body of a character from her favorite novel, in a room that was completely unfamiliar to her. This world, which until now had been just a figment of her imagination and a place of refuge from reality, suddenly became her new reality. Karina looked around and saw a bloody man standing next to her. This moment tested her courage and determination. Everything that had previously seemed to her only like exciting adventures in the pages of a book was now her new life. In the dark and mysterious confines of the ancient castle, hidden from view, the young man revealed the grim truth to Karina with a serious expression. His words, heavy as a leaden veil, fell on her shoulders, weighing them down with an invisible burden. He was talking about the cultists whose presence within these walls was not just a coincidence. Their name, like a key opening a door to a world of forbidden knowledge, instantly shed light on Karina's situation. She realized that she was surrounded not just by danger, but by a whole world that had come out of the pages of a book that she had not just read, but absorbed over and over again, each time being carried away into its wilds. This novel was not widely popular, but it was a whole world to her, a world that, strangely enough, she now found herself in. But here was the puzzle. Karina couldn't figure out exactly where in this intricately arranged mosaic she found herself. This moment was one of the most tense and dangerous in the entire story, and she woke up in the body of a stranger, a character who wasn't on any page of the work she'd read dozens of times. It added even more mystery and unpredictability to the situation. How could she, who knew every twist and turn of the plot so well, be outside its canonical line? After all, every chapter, every paragraph was familiar to her, every action predictable to the smallest detail. But now, caught in the middle of a whirlwind of events, Corina realized that her knowledge of the world she adored so much might be useless. After all, the game will have to play by new rules, in a world where she is only a shadow, unintended by the author. Finding herself in an unusual and very difficult situation, Corina found herself as a character who, in the hierarchy of importance of the story, only occupied a place at the back of the plot. It was a far cry from the great transformation that a girl who longed for adventure and heroic deeds could dream of. However, when the guy, one of the key characters in the story, approached her to ask about her well-being, Corina felt it was the moment of truth. At this critical moment, she realized that it was not the time to be discouraged about her role in the story, but the time to act, because that's what the heroes who found themselves in unfamiliar worlds on the pages of their favorite novels did. With this new epiphany, Corina did an act that was equal parts daring and symbolic. She cut off part of her hair. This act is not just a change in appearance, but a sign of readiness for change, a symbol of determination to overcome all obstacles to survival. For Corina, it was an expression of inner strength and independence, a decision to take fate into her own hands, even if it meant retreating from her usual image. Her determination to survive at all costs, even through such drastic action, stunned the guy. His reaction was a reflection not only of surprise, but perhaps a new admiration for this third-rate character who had suddenly come to the fore, displaying extraordinary courage and determination. Finding herself in an unexpectedly difficult situation, Corina made a decision that was a turning point in her new life. Continuing to demonstrate her steadfastness and practicality, Corina performed another act that spoke of her deep understanding of the realities of their current situation. Faced with the need to choose a more practical outfit for the upcoming ordeal, she didn't hesitate to proceed to undress her body to borrow his clothes. This act not only symbolized her inner readiness for change, but also shocked the guy, who certainly did not expect such a radical act from his companion. Her determination and logic caused embarrassment to the guy who may not have been prepared for such actions from Corina. However, her argument about the choice between undressing a corpse or undressing a guy was undeniable and pragmatic. At that moment, they both realized that they would have to go to any lengths to survive in this world. Together, step by step, they moved toward the exit of this gloomy place, fortified with confidence in their abilities. Corina, recognized as the best swordswoman of her world, carried not only skill and proficiency with her weapon, but also a deep confidence in her ability to face any challenge. This knowledge gave them both the strength and determination needed to overcome the challenges ahead. Corina, with an unwavering spirit and sense of duty, firmly stated that it was not in her nature to leave a man in distress. It became for the guy a happy coincidence because thanks to her he found not just salvation, but also a reliable companion in the person of Corina. Her determination and willingness to support him in his time of need was a ray of light in a dark kingdom. Supporting the boy, Corina gently leaned him on her shoulder, and thus, step by step, they were able to leave the gloomy castle walls. The road to freedom was not an easy one, for every step they took could end in an encounter with cultists whose sinister intentions remained a mystery. However, luck was on their side. They were able to avoid unwanted encounters. Together, they moved forward, and each step brought them closer to freedom, filling their hearts with joy at the realization that the worst may be over. However, despite her outward calmness and confidence, Kurin's anxiety was overwhelming. Her gaze occasionally slid to the boy, trying to guess his condition. She worried that at any moment he might pass out and faint from exhaustion and the stress he had suffered. In that case, she would have to cope alone, since there was nowhere to wait for help. That thought made her act even more cautiously, backing the guy up at every turn to prevent any threat to his well-being. Their journey together from the dark castle into the unknown was not only a test of physical endurance, but also a test of their mutual support and trust in each other. Corina faced the daunting task of unraveling the mystery of her new existence, of figuring out whose role she had been thrust into in this unfamiliar world. The most important clue could be the guy, the only one she thought had the answers to the questions that plagued her. However, fate decided to make adjustments to her plans with an unexpected element. The moment she turned to the guy for answers, he suddenly collapsed, as if his strength had left him so abruptly that he couldn't even utter a word in his defense or help. It was a moment filled with anxiety and uncertainty for Corina, who began desperately trying to bring him to his senses. She began to shake him, naively hoping that he, overcoming the barriers of consciousness, could at least whisper the name of the character she had reincarnated as. The guy lying lifelessly on the ground seemed to be on the verge between life and death, and at this critical moment, Corina felt the full weight of the burden of uncertainty and powerlessness. Her mind seized with panic. She didn't know how to help him, what steps to take to save his life. The possibility of losing her boyfriend, the only one who could shed light on her situation, was unbearable for her. In that alley where shadows and light intertwined in a dance of eternal confrontation, Corina found herself swallowed by an ocean of loneliness, her heart filled with despair. The one thread that could lead to the unraveling of the mystery of her own identity seemed irretrievably lost. This alleyway, once full of life, now seemed to her a wasteland of lifeless hopes and broken dreams. Only moments ago, the guy's butler, whose devotion and care were as constant as the stars in the night sky, had discovered them in this forgotten world. His gaze, full of worry and anxiety, instantly assessed the situation. The boy, his ward, lay motionless on the cold ground, like a doll that had lost its master. With every beat of his heart, the butler realized the gravity of the moment, and a shadow of fear for the young man's fate flickered in his eyes. Without hesitation, the butler took the burden of responsibility, stating that the young lad was in urgent need of medical attention. With such determination that even the wind seemed frozen in anticipation, he lifted the lad's lifeless body like a feather onto his shoulders. As he carried him away, his gaze didn't meet Corina's, leaving her in that very alley, surrounded by walls of silence and the invisible weight of the lack of attention she felt as a refusal of help and support. This act, though dictated by the need to save a life, left Corina deeply confused and frustrated. Her inner world, already chafed by storms of uncertainty about her own identity, was now further darkened by despair. Standing in the middle of the alley, it was as if she was witnessing her last hope float away with the butler and the boyfriend, leaving her alone with the vast emptiness of her existence. Searching for the key figure of her quest, Corina pondered every encounter and every face she crossed paths with. The guy, with his enigmatic appearance, seemed like one of her most promising candidates for the moment. Though his features were not familiar to her, deep down she felt a certain resemblance that reminded her of the one she was so desperately searching for. In this world filled with secrets and masquerade, where the heroine of the novel, Oscar, could hide her true identity under the mask of a man, nothing seemed impossible. Oscar was a link between worlds where every step could be decisive. Cedric, the captain of the Royal Guard and the protagonist of the story, represented the ideal of masculinity and honor. His interactions with Oscar and the other characters revealed the complexity of human relationships, where trust and betrayal go hand in hand. Members of the Reinhardt royal family brought their own intrigue to the plot, each with their own ambitions, secrets, and fears. This network of relationships was so intricate that sometimes it seemed as if fate itself was weaving these patterns, putting before the heroes more and more new challenges. However, the most tragic twist of fate was that half of them, by the inexorable course of the plot, were doomed to die. This fact shrouded the story in a shadow of anticipation of tragedy, making every moment spent together priceless and unique. For Corina, this story was not only a quest, but also a journey deep inside herself, where every encounter and every event made her see the world differently. In the heart of a kingdom where stories are woven of bravery and betrayal, Oscar, a girl with unparalleled swordsmanship, hiding her true identity under the mask of a man, has made her way into the ranks of the Royal Guard. In this arena of courage and honor, where every day tests her strength and agility, she meets Captain Cedric, a man whose skill and bravery knew no equal. But the world they knew crumbles when the rebellion that erupted like a fire takes over their lives. Cedric, who had become not only a comrade but also a symbol of an ideal for Oscar, is suddenly accused of treason, falling victim to foul intrigue and executed without mercy, leaving behind only memories and broken hearts. Tragedy does not spare the heart of the kingdom when the monarch's younger brother, whose death comes at the hands of Oscar, takes away a part of the soul of everyone connected to this ill-fated saga. Oscar, a girl whose life has been full of struggle and the pursuit of justice, eventually comes face to face with a traitor to their country. In this final act of desperate courage and sacrifice, she ends his string of betrayals, but at the cost of her own life, drained from a weak heart that could not withstand the onslaught of suffering and loss. Like an echo echoing in the depths of Corina's soul, this story leaves a trail of resentment and bitterness. The deaths of beloved characters, each of whom was a unique thread in the fabric of this world filled with intrigue and heroism, cannot leave one indifferent. Korina, along with everyone who has touched this story, feels a deep connection to the characters whose lives were so cruelly cut short at the height of their fame and struggle for justice. Their heroic journey, riddled with battles, love, and betrayal, leaves an indelible mark in the hearts of readers, reminding them of the fragility of fate and the greatness of the human spirit. In the heart of uncharted lands where secrets and mysteries are woven together, Korina's soul awakens. She stands at the crossroads of her destiny, contemplating the path that will lead her to the king's castle. This path seemed tantalizing to her, but at the same time fraught with unknown dangers. After all, Korina knew nothing about her character, and without even knowing her own name until the end, which made her moves especially risky. After all, who knows what shadows of the past might be waiting for her in the shadowy halls of the royal palace? Could she be the forgotten criminal whose name is already carved on the stone of execution? But deep inside, behind the wall of doubts and fears, Korina discovered a source of unyielding will and strength. Determination was brewing in her heart, strengthened by the brutal training she had endured in her previous life. These memories, though blurry, gave her confidence in her abilities and capabilities. She knew that the path would be difficult, that trials and dangers awaited her at every step, but in her soul there was confidence. She was ready to overcome all obstacles, to face the unknown and perhaps even her own fears. With every step Korina took towards the royal castle, her soul was filled with even more determination and strength. She was about to open the pages of her own history that had been closed to her for so long. With every breath of wind on her face, with every rustle of leaves under her feet, she felt herself getting closer to the clue of her destiny. Korina, with only courage and memories of her past, stepped towards her destiny, ready to face what lay ahead, a majestic and unpredictable future. In a world where destinies intertwined in unexpected ways, Korina felt a great longing to be a part of something great that transcended the mere limits of reality. Her inner world was seized with a desire to save Oscar and Cedric, two characters whose fates seemed to her unfairly incomplete in the canvas of the novel she loved so much. The love line between the two, which Korina longed to know more about, was barely visible in the pages of the piece, leaving her heart full of questions and eager for adventure. With indomitable determination in her heart and the fire of curiosity in her eyes, she began to search for the clue to the part of the story in which she found herself. Her search led Corinne to a stack of old newspapers, where she hoped she would find a date that could point her way through the mists of time. Those sheets, yellowed with time, seemed like a bridge to the answers she so desperately sought. When she finally discovered the date, however, she was stunned. The figures on the pages of the newspaper mercilessly announced that she was 25 years later than the key events of the novel. This discovery was like a cold shower to her ardent heart. Disappointment and shock that she wouldn't be able to change Oscar and Cedric's fate lingered in the air. All her dreams and hopes of witnessing and possibly participating in their love story crumbled in an instant. The realization that her time travel had left her in an era where the events she wanted to change had long since become part of history put a heavy weight on her soul. Now Korina faced a new challenge, accepting the reality she found herself in and finding her way in a world where her heroes were long past needing rescuing. It was a test not only for her mind but also for her heart, leading her to new horizons of destiny where every step forward promised uncharted discoveries and possibilities. The moment reality and fantasy became entwined, Korina felt an overwhelming emptiness in her heart, realizing that her fate was no longer in her hands. She found herself in the epilogue of her story, in the closing lines of a tale that seemed to be concluding without her active participation. That moment of despair was like a thundercloud looming over her head as she realized that her journey may have ended before it truly began. Not far from her, in that same forgotten world of storylines and unrevealed characters, a group of conspirators were quietly carrying on their cryptic conversation. They discussed the plans surrounding Guy's escape and expressed dissatisfaction with their work, lamenting that they should have acted more thoughtfully and efficiently. In this stream of conversation, Korina was nothing more than a random bystander to them, an obstacle to their schemes. When their gazes met with Korina's, a threat hung in the air. The conspirators, realizing that their secrets might be revealed, decided to act decisively to cover their tracks. They discussed a plan to get rid of the unexpected witness, not noticing that Korina was too stunned by her discoveries to react to their words. Threats and sinister plans blew past her like wind through autumn leaves, leaving no trace in her mind. The sudden realization that she was in a dark alley was like waking up from a bad dream. How had she gotten here? This moment was as incomprehensible as all the previous events. At this critical moment, when time seemed to slow down, Korina suddenly realized the depth and danger of the situation she was in. Her actions were lightning fast and precise as she struck like a heroine of ancient legends, wounding one of the bandits in the shoulder. This moment of rage and despair awakened in her memories of the local bandits whose hearts were shrouded in the darkness of black magic and whose souls were filled with cruelty. She realized that the people before her were not just opponents, but followers of the dark arts, for whom human life mattered little. It wasn't just a clash, it was a battle to the death that could not be avoided. The realization that the battle was not in her favor did not stop Korina. She became a symbol of resistance and courage as the bandits swept over her like waves of darkness to swallow her light. But even in the face of overwhelming numerical superiority, Korina showed no fear. Her determination and bravery illuminated the darkness of the alley with a powerful light, repelling every blow, every attack with incredible agility and skill. And so, after a few long seconds that seemed like an eternity, there were only two opponents left on the battlefield. This turn of events was like the plot of an ancient ballad where the heroine alone confronts dark forces, trying to break through the walls of an invisible fortress. Rina's every movement was filled with determination and desperation. Her every look spoke of an unyielding desire to live and fight to the last. In this battle to the death, where every moment could be the last, Korina was the embodiment of fortitude and indomitable will, demonstrating that even in the darkest of nights, a spark of light can be found to chase away the darkness. Exhausted from the endless struggle, Korina felt her strength leaving her with every passing moment. Her movements, previously quick and precise, were now becoming increasingly slow and uncertain. The opponents left in front of her seemed to sense her weakness and joining forces attacked with renewed vigor. At the critical moment when one of the attackers took a decisive swing towards Korina, it was as if time had stopped. The thought flashed through her mind of the inevitable end, that the battle was lost and she would no longer be able to resist, but fate had it differently. At the very last moment, when hope seemed lost, a savior appeared before her. A young guy who had appeared as if out of nowhere to protect her from an imminent hit. This unexpected turn of events illuminated the dark corners of the street with the light of hope. The guy who stood between Korina and her opponents was like a protector sent by fate itself. His determination and courage seemed boundless at that moment, and his appearance brought new colors to the picture of a battle that seemed already predetermined. For Korina, lying on the ground and looking up at her savior, this moment was a turning point. Despair and fatigue were replaced by a new wave of strength and desire to fight, for now she realized she was not alone. This guy, who entered the battle with her opponents, gave her not only a chance for salvation, but also the belief that even in the most difficult situation can find a way out, if you keep hope and do not give up until the end. The moment fate unpredictably brought Korinu together with the stranger, she couldn't hide her admiration for his amazing skill. Deep in her heart, she was sure that her coach, who was always looking for talent for his team, wouldn't miss the chance to invite this man to join them. The skill with which he handled the danger was so impressive that she felt as if she had found a rare treasure in the world of sports. When the man turned to her, his words were full of concern and warning of the hidden dangers of the city's alleys. He admonished her that even during daylight hours, alleys could hide dangers, for cultists, always on the hunt, did not discriminate whether they attacked groups of people or lone passers-by. These words should have elicited feelings of gratitude and caution in her, but she was so amazed and stunned by the encounter and his abilities that she was unable to instantly form thoughts for a response. Her silence was not so much a sign of confusion as a reflection of the deep impression this man had made on her. His not only life-saving actions, but his subsequent concern for her safety made her see him as more than just a passerby or a potential recruit for the team. In this unforeseen encounter with Ko's destiny, Rina saw not only a master of his craft, but a man emanating a care and foresight rarely found in today's world, where everyone cares only for their own well-being. After Korina's unexpected savior demonstrated his skill and care, he carefully examined her for injuries. With a confidence and calmness that only emphasized his experience and knowledge, he concluded that the girl's wounds were minor. At this time, he was approached by a group of knights who, it became clear, were under his direct command. With an ease indicative of his leadership skills, he gave them orders to get busy treating Korina's wounds. The knights, obeying the order, approached Corinne. There was a sense of respect and care in their manner of treatment that was not so common in their cruel world. They started questioning the girl, trying to figure out who she was and where she was from. The situation was becoming more and more absurd to Corina, for she herself did not yet fully understand who she had become in this new world. In a state of confusion and unable to find any other answer, she introduced herself as Oscar. In a world where valor and courage are shrouded in legend, the name Oscar sounded like a challenge to tradition, especially when Corina chose it for herself. Her decision was not a spontaneous impulse or a play of imagination. It was a deliberate move calculated to create a certain impression among the knights. After all, the name Oscar had its own weight and sound that should resonate with the hearts and souls of warriors raised on heroic sagas and valiant deeds. So Corina didn't just choose a name. She took on a mask that was meant to open doors for her into the world of knights, a world where it wasn't easy for a woman to find her place. When the conversation touched on the recent clash in which Corina was able to incapacitate two attackers, the knights' reactions were a mixture of surprise and disbelief. In their world, where every conflict was resolved in a fight, the idea that one woman could defeat two opponents seemed out of the ordinary. Their amazement knew no bounds, for even in times when heroes performed incredible feats, such an act was among the exceptions, causing deep shock and admiration. This moment was a test not only of Kona's physical strength, but also of her ability to persuade and prove her exceptionalism in the eyes of those who doubted her abilities. As if cutting the silence with their sudden announcement, the knights expressed their desire to see Corina in their ranks. They were amazed not only by her valor and skill with weapons, but also by the unprecedented talent she displayed in outmaneuvering two opponents with incredible agility and cunning. In their eyes, she was no longer just a loner with an unusual name, but had become the embodiment of that indestructible strength and intelligence that every troop sought in these troubled times. Corina's decision to join them didn't sound like an easy decision due to some difficulties. For although her heart sank at the thought of the new adventures and opportunities that were opening up before her, deep down she knew that her path was bound to lead to a meeting with the novel's protagonist. To do so, she needed to enter the circles of the aristocracy, where every step and word was weighed with special care, and doors were opened not only through personal achievement, but also by noble descent. However, standing at the crossroads of her destiny, Corina realized that accepting the knight's offer could be the decisive step that would bring her closer to her cherished goal. In the back of her mind, Rena seriously hesitated with the decision to join the squad, feeling the weight of a choice that could drastically change the trajectory of her life. But in one poignant moment, her gaze happened to fall on the shimmering jewel of many hues that majestically adorned their captain's neck. This stone, not just a piece of jewelry, but also a key to deep awareness, instantly awakened a flood of memories and feelings in Rena. The stone known as the Lumiere was none other than a family heirloom of the Cedric family, an ancient and respected family with a history stretching back into the distant past. It symbolized not only the rich history and traditions of the family, but also the deep, unbreakable bonds of love and devotion. Cedric, the last descendant of this great family, gave this stone to Oscar as a token of unprecedented love and trust when he confessed his love for her. This gesture was extremely significant because Cedric cherished the Lumiere, seeing it not only as a family heirloom, but also as a symbol of his most sincere feelings. Thus, seeing the Lumiere around the captain's neck, Rena felt a powerful surge of emotion. This realization became a light in the tunnel of doubt and reflection for her, showing her the path she had to choose. Corina, along with a group of knights, set off on a journey full of uncertainties. Among the many questions swirling around in her mind, one in particular stood out. Why was the Lumiere stone in the possession of the captain of these knights? The mysticism of this stone, surrounded by legends and secrets, beckoned to her, but the answers were hidden from her grasp. Suddenly, breaking the silence with his voice, Mattis Victor addressed her. His words made Corinne realize again how strange it sounded to address her under an assumed name. It was like a game of masquerade where everyone tries to hide their true face, but in their case the masks were of a much more serious nature. Mattis unfolded before her a page of history she had never known before. Turns out they were once part of the royal order, warriors sworn to serve the crown. But as in any story where destinies intertwine with power, there came a moment of change. The king, deeming the knights commoners incapable of benefiting his kingdom, rejected them. It wasn't just banishment. It was a denial of their worth, of their role in the defense of the kingdom, which certainly caused deep wounds to their pride and sense of justice. Immersed in thought after hearing the story, Corina came to the conclusion that her decision to join this squad was the right one. Mattis Victor's words describing the moments of despair and helplessness after being cast out sounded like an echo of their unbroken spirit. It was in those dark times when the path ahead seemed invisible that Captain Leo rallied them, or, as he was known among those closest to him, Leopold Kalix. This name caused a storm of emotions and memories in Karina's heart, for it was not just familiar to her, it caused a wave of recognition and perhaps even admiration. Despite all the emotions, however, Corina was aware of the need to keep her mind clear. It was important for her to make sure that she understood correctly that she was really facing the very Leopold Kalix, of whom she had heard stories, legends, and whose name was shrouded in a halo of almost mythical glory. This discovery could have dramatically changed her perception of her current state of affairs, adding new nuances to her understanding of this journey and her role in it. Thus, Corina stood on the threshold of a new chapter of her life, ready to come face to face with the legends of the past that suddenly appeared to be her own present. When Corina asked a question regarding the unusual stone that was always on Leopold's radar, waiting to hear perhaps another legend, Mattis's answer was surprisingly simple and touchingly personal. He divulged that the stone was nothing but a gift from Leopold's mother. This information was like a key to the lock of the memories in the depths of Corina's consciousness, opening a flood of images and emotions before her. She remembered the affair that now flared even more brightly, lighting the path to understanding. These moments of epiphany prompted Corina to make a surprising discovery. Oscar and Cedric, characters from her memories, were actually Leopold's parents. This realization came to her unexpectedly, but it fit unreservedly into the big picture of her understanding of the story and the relationships between the characters. This fact added depth to her perception of Leopold not only as a leader and warrior, but also as a man who carried his family's heritage and history on his shoulders. In the depths of her imagination, Corina was faced with a challenging question that made her head throb with bewilderment. The moment when Oscar and Cedric somehow managed to have a child despite the meager romance lines seemed unheard of. Rena couldn't understand how and when this plot twist found its way into the story, given that the author never explicitly described such an event in the text of the novel. It left her in a state of deep doubt and curiosity, for something didn't add up. Cedric, who had grown up in a family of swordsmen, and Oscar, who had established herself as a consummate swordswoman and knight, earning the respect and love of the entire kingdom through her exploits, seemed destined to pass on the status to the child. However, their son Leopold has already made a name for himself by joining the Order of Knights pro-slavery. This was especially unusual given his parents' status and background, adding even more intrigue and mystery to the story. The story of Leopold, the son of two outstanding warriors who joined the ranks of the knights, not just so tales of nobility and honor, but also defending the rights and freedoms of ordinary people, raised a lot of questions. How could the offspring of such illustrious parents choose a path somewhat opposite to their own accomplishments? After a long and grueling journey, a group of travelers finally reached their cherished goal, the headquarters of the Order, which was hidden behind the walls of the imposing and majestic house of Oscar. This place, surrounded by an aura of mystery and grandeur, welcomed them with open arms, as if it had long awaited their arrival. The air inside the building was imbued with an atmosphere of adventure and ancient legends, and every corner seemed filled with stories of valor and honor. As a newcomer, also a fan of the novel, Rena especially liked the interior of the house. It seemed to her that the walls of this place were saturated with the magic and wisdom of past generations of Knights of the Order. It feels like every item here has a story waiting to be told. The encounter with the Knights of the Order added a new twist to the story. These warriors, guardians of ancient traditions and defenders of their lands, were clearly concerned about the squad's long absence. Their looks were full of questions and bewilderment, for in a world where every day can bring a new threat, the lack of word from such a group is alarming. Mattis, one of the group, readily tried to dispel their fears by stating with some degree of nonchalance that Leopold, their leader, had enough strength and skill to protect them from any adversity. However, the knights shared the disturbing news that the cultists, dark forces bent on power and destruction, had become all too influential in their country. This revelation cast a shadow over the meeting, reminding all present that the path they chose would be full of challenges and difficulties. The news of the increased influence of the cultists made everyone present in House Oscar feel the weight of the responsibility resting on their shoulders. For now, the fight for a bright future for their lands was becoming even more urgent and meaningful. With a slight smile reflecting both carefree and deep awareness of the challenges ahead, Mattis emphasized to those present that their efforts and aspirations should be redoubled in light of the threat posed by the cultists. In this atmosphere of mutual support and focus, Mattis introduced a new face to the gathering, Corina. His words, marked by the weight of the moment, put the girl to an unexpected test, bringing her into a state of mild, stunned shock. The idea that she was facing an entrance test was so unexpected to her that it was like a bolt of lightning struck her mind. No one had warned Corina of such conditions, and she, consumed by a mixture of excitement and confusion, felt the stares of those present. The test that was to determine her fate in this community was sparring with Leopold. This choice was no accident. Sparring is a test of strength, mind, and spirit, the ability to stand up for yourself and at the same time respect your opponent. Rena had no choice but to accept the challenge. On the one hand, she had to prove her resilience and willingness to be part of this group. And on the other hand, she had to overcome her inner doubts and fear of the unknown. This moment was a test not only of her physical fitness, but also of her inner strength, her ability to adapt to unexpected circumstances and find the courage to accept a challenge when there is nowhere to retreat. Corina's heart beat faster than ever as she stood across from Leopold, the epitome of legend, a descendant of the greatest knights whose feats and prowess were known far beyond these lands. With every beat of her heart, she felt a wave of fear and anxiety trying to overwhelm her, for Leopold possessed such strength and skill that he could decide the outcome of the battle with a single moment. The thought that her journey into the Order might end before the real test even began flashed through her mind, causing a storm of doubt and uncertainty. But despite the gravity of the moment and the realization that the odds were against her, Corina found the strength to meet the challenge. This new world where fate had brought her didn't offer easy paths or guarantees. The only thing she had was the opportunity to show her determination and courage when facing danger. Gathering her will into a fist, she took a fighting stance, ready to spar. At that moment, her fears and doubts receded, leaving only her concentration and desire to prove that she was worthy of a place in this order. Corina's stance reflected not only her physical readiness for the challenge ahead, but also her inner transformation. She realized that this sparring was not just a test of her fighting skills, but a test of her spirit, her willingness to overcome fears, doubts, and go beyond what was possible. In this battle, where every move and decision can be decisive, Corina not only fought for her place in the Order, but also for the right to find her way in this new, difficult world, where every challenge makes her only stronger. In the arena where the two unrivaled warriors were meeting, the atmosphere was electrified with anticipation. The sparring between Corina and Leopold had begun, and every moment of this fight was filled with tension and elusive maneuvers. Corina, with her incredible agility and ability to adapt to any style of combat, was truly amazed by Leopold's speed and skill. His movements were so quick and precise that it seemed as if he anticipated her every move in advance. She also demonstrated her strength and skill, which made the bout a thrilling spectacle of equal strength, where every strike and counterattack was executed with impeccable precision and grace. However, no matter how equal the fight seemed, Corina could not detect the slightest gap in Leopold's defense. It was becoming clear to her that victory in this fight would not be achieved through direct superiority, but through endurance and cunning. And then, at the most critical moment, when the forces seemed to be running out and the whole arena was holding its breath in anticipation of the final act, Corina's eyes caught something that could completely change the course of the battle. A crack in the ground, imperceptible to the naked eye, but it was there, like a sign of fate or a clue from the arena itself. This unforeseen element could be the key to her victory. With this new knowledge, Corina began to work her way to triumph, aptly using the crack in the ground she had discovered to create the advantage needed to defeat Leopold. At that moment, the duel took a new turn, and everyone present in the arena realized that they were witnessing something exceptional, a battle of wits and strategies where every next move could be decisive. At the most unexpected moment, when silence seemed to be the primary mistress of the space, Leopold made an unpredictable move. His foot touched an unfortunate crack in the ground, and that moment was critical. He staggered as if a harbinger of a storm about to hit. Corina, not missing a moment, decided to use his instability to her advantage. With the agility and determination of a true warrior, she made a decisive lunge, hoping to catch her opponent off guard. But in this duel, the predictability ended as Leopold suddenly vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a flutter of air. The speed at which he disappeared struck Korinu to the core, leaving her in a state of shock and bewilderment. But the real blow came next. Leopold, like a ghost, appeared quite suddenly behind Rena's back. It was so sudden and unexpected that even the wind seemed to freeze in anticipation of the outcome of this battle. Before she could realize what had happened, Leopold had already clasped her hands with such force and skill that resistance seemed pointless. In one decisive moment, he felled her to the ground, demonstrating not only his superior martial arts skills, but also his incredible reaction speed. This maneuver was not a simple action. It was an art that could be compared to the dance of wind and lightning, where every movement and every step had its own meaning, its own purpose, and each was filled with determination and power. After the dust of battle had settled, Leopold, with all the earnestness and wisdom that comes with experience, turned to Corina with a critical remark. He emphasized that one should not expect mercy or honesty in a battle with a real enemy. The enemies the knights face will not follow the rules of dueling or competition. They will look for any opportunity to win, even if it means playing outside the rules. Leopold's words sounded to Corina like a gulp of cold water, abruptly awakening her from her illusions. Corina, absorbing every word, realized the weight of real combat experience that was so very different from anything she had known up to that point. A new kind of respect began to awaken in her heart, not only for Leopold, but for the reality of the warrior's journey. She realized that all of her previous accomplishments, while important and impressive within official competitions, meant little on the battlefield, where every moment could cost a life. This realization, though it came with difficulty and caused internal conflict, was an important lesson for Corina. Leopold, for his part, did not seek to humiliate her or show her weaknesses. His words were filled with genuine concern and a desire to prepare Corina for the harsh realities of military life. He wanted her to be prepared for any challenges that might come her way. And in that moment, Corina realized that if she really wanted to survive and become a true knight, she needed to go through the fire of real battles, learning from each of her opponents and each of her experiences. Only then can she become a worthy warrior, able to protect not only herself, but also those behind her back. Corina, still feeling tense after her ordeal, couldn't shake off her anxiety, worrying about whether or not she was meeting the expectations set for her. Her inner anxiety was reflected in her voice, filled with anticipation and hope for a positive answer. Mattis, whose face reflected calm and wisdom, showed understanding for her condition. His nod was full of confidence and support. He noted that the very idea of expecting Corina to defeat Leopold was absurd, for Leopold's skill made him an almost invincible opponent for an inexperienced warrior. The main goal for Corina was not to win, but to demonstrate her ability to adapt and withstand in the face of a much more experienced opponent, while showing her ability to parry blows. According to Mattis, Corina not only met the challenge, but exceeded it, demonstrating skills beyond expectations. This recognition was a ray of light through the clouds of doubt, filling her heart with confidence and pride in her accomplishments. In that moment, she realized that her efforts in pursuit of excellence had been noticed and appreciated at the proper level, an important step for her in becoming a true knight. But suddenly Leopold calmly demanded that Corina follow him for a private dialogue. Deep within the intricate corridors of her thoughts, Corina hovered in premonitions and speculation, trying to unravel the reason Leopold had invited her. Her heart warmed at the thought of possible praise for her unrivaled swordsmanship, which may not have gone unnoticed. However, the world of her assumptions crumbled in an instant when a cold and merciless blade suddenly found its place at her neck. Leopold, whose face now reflected not merely severity but undisguised suspicion, demanded that the mystery of her identity be solved. His words sounded like a sentence demanding an immediate response, and cold steel was a very good incentive to respond. Corina, trapped in her own fears and confusion, begged him to withdraw the blade that seemed ready to pierce her throat at any moment. But to Leopold, her requests sounded increasingly meaningless. In his eyes, she appeared as a riddle to be solved. How could one woman without apparent effort defeat several cult members, then wish to join their order with such naivety and confidence? This did not sit well with Leopold, who was used to order and predictability in the ranks of his brotherhood. Every warrior of the order had gone through years of training and testing, And now there stood before them a woman ready to overturn all their notions of strength and skill. This moment was a test not only for Corina, whose life balanced on the edge of a sword, but also for Leopold, who faced a dilemma whose resolution could change them both forever. In the back of her mind, Corina was aware that Leopold found her behavior extremely suspicious. She couldn't blame him for that, though, because even she recognized it herself. The circumstances in which she found herself sounded so fantastic that it seemed almost impossible to inspire confidence. She desperately needed to find a way out of this tense situation where her every word, every gesture could be decisive. In a desperate attempt to gain some understanding, Corina took the audacious step of introducing herself as the child of Leopold's mother's longtime friend. This statement, unexpected and full of drama, struck like a bolt of lightning through the silence that enveloped them both. Leopold, whose facial features had always been characterized by impenetrability and concentration, lost his firmness for a moment, stunned by this turn. And now, frozen, they were both trapped in a time trap, where each second stretched into an infinity filled with anticipation and the unpredictability of the next moment. This tiny span of time in which they both froze, as if on the verge of breaking between past and future, was a test for both of them. For Corina, it was an attempt to find common ground with the man who had her fate in his hands. For Leopold, it was a moment when he had to decide whether he could trust the words of this mysterious stranger whose story was so inscrutably intertwined with his own. Leopold found himself in front of Corina, who, like an enchantress from the past, revealed to him the pages of his family history, shrouded in mystery and sorrow. She told him of his mother, a woman of indomitable spirit whose life had been cut short in the whirlwind of rebellion, leaving behind only memories and sadness in the hearts of loved ones. Among these memories was the story of the stone that Leopold wore around his neck, as a symbol of memory and connection to a past that seemed so distant and incomprehensible to him. Leopold, consumed with a mixture of amazement and confusion, could not understand how Corina had come to possess such intimate and detailed information about his family. Questions swirled in his mind, each seeking its own answers in the bottomless sea of the past. As a bridge between past and present, Corina stated that their parents were not just acquaintances, but close friends whose fates were closely intertwined before they were born. It was as if this revelation opened a new door to Leopold's understanding of his past, giving him the key to unraveling many of his family's mysteries. With each word of Kona, Leopold felt how the depths of his soul were filled with new colors of emotions, among which there was a place and surprise, and grief for the lost mother, and gratitude to this unexpected storyteller who opened his eyes to many things. And though every word she said made his heart ache for what he had lost, it also gave him comfort, for now he knew that the memory of his mother was not only in his heart. In the depths of her mind, Corina realized how incredibly fantastic and unlikely the account of her adventures seemed. She was amazed to find that Leopold, with his shrewd eye and keen mind, took her words at face value. This discovery brought her a wave of relief and joy, for she thought her secrets were on the verge of being exposed. Suddenly, gripped by a thirst for knowledge of the past that she had missed by being consumed by her adventures and trials, Corina decided to ask Leopold about the events of the past 25 years. Her question sounded like a bridge spanning the abyss of time, an effort to connect the lost past to the present. Leopold, to Corina's surprise, not only did not shy away from answering, but met her question with unexpected calmness. He began to recount the events that had unfolded in the kingdom, as if unfolding before her the pages of a forgotten history book. His words painted a grim picture. The king who had once supported Leopold had suddenly turned his back on him, erasing all mention of his person from the official chronicles. This betrayal was not just a personal affront, but a blow to his family's honor and reputation. His father's family, once powerful and respected, had been ruthlessly destroyed, leaving only a shadow of its former greatness behind. As she listened to Leopold, Corina was immersed in his story, feeling every emotion, every moment he had experienced. His words evoked in her heart both reverent sympathy and a storm of indignation at the injustice he and his family had endured. This story became for her not just a story about the past, but a testament to Leopold's steadfastness of spirit, his ability to withstand the trials of fate and remain true to his principles, despite betrayal and loss. Leopold's life path proved to be a vivid example of the thorny paths that descendants of those who fell victim to political intrigue and were slandered as traitors have to overcome. With each twist of fate, his existence became more difficult and bleak, especially after power in the kingdom passed to a new monarch. This period in Leopold's life was marked by a particularly brutal ordeal. His squad, a group of men loyal to him, were sent into exile in a remote, snowy land where every day of their struggle for survival put their return home in doubt. However, despite all the difficulties, the squad managed to return, demonstrating not only physical strength and endurance, but also an unwavering spirit. This triumph, however, was overshadowed by a new stroke of fate. Leopold was banished from the palace, depriving him of all the honors he deserved and the opportunity to serve his country. And even after so many years, the king continued to persecute him, seeking to destroy the last vestiges of his dignity and influence. Upon hearing this story, Corina was overwhelmed with emotion. The tears that came to her eyes were not only an expression of deep sympathy for Leopold and his unspeakable suffering, but also a reflection of pain for the injustice he had to endure. Her heart clenched at the thought of the countless trials Leopold had gone through and the unyielding will to live that allowed him not only to survive these conditions, but also to keep his faith in justice and honor. Those tears were a quiet hymn of respect for his courage and fortitude, and a silent pledge of support in any future trials. In the depths of her heart, Corina felt a rush of inexplicable emotions when she learned about the incredibly difficult path Leopold had traveled. Her amazement and admiration for his steadfastness knew no bounds. Despite the hardships and betrayal of his country, Leopold not only remained faithful to his ideals, but continued to defend those who betrayed him without question. This story seemed to her so exciting and heroic that it could have been the basis for a thrilling novel that could win the hearts of millions. The tears, uninvited guests on her face, were a silent testimony to the deep feelings that stirred her soul. She reflected on how much Leopold had endured, how much had been lost, and how little he had gained in return. In every drop sliding down her cheeks was a reflection of his unspoken woes and the injustice he faced. And in that moment, Corina realized her true purpose in this world. Reborn in the world of the novel, she didn't just become part of a fictional story, she found a mission to follow. Determination filled her heart like never before. She promised herself that she would be a support for Leopold, that she would be the light in the darkness that would help him find his way to a better future. Corina realized that meeting Leopold was no accident. This was the beginning of the journey they must take together, and she would do her best to support him like no one else. No matter what trials lay ahead of them, she was determined to be his protector, friend, and companion in all the troubles and joys that might await them on this difficult journey. At dawn the next day, Corina began preparing for the upcoming service. She carefully wrapped bandages around her breasts in an effort to minimize any discomfort that might occur during her duties. This act of not just physical preparation, but an inner attunement to the challenges ahead, symbolized her determination and willingness to face any hardship, not allowing her physical features to become an obstacle to her duty. Leaving the shelter of her room, she ran into Leopold, who was absorbed in the process of polishing his helmet. His movements were meditative and precise, each sweep of the rag across the shiny metal reflecting his commitment to excellence, not only in caring for his gear, but in maintaining discipline and order in all things. Corina, observing his diligence, offered her help, trying to find a way to strengthen the bond with her fellow officer and show her willingness to be cooperative and supportive. However, Leopold's reaction was unexpectedly cold. He replied to Corina that he had no intention of treating her differently from any other associate. The statement was a clear reminder that in their world, personal feelings and prejudices must give way to discipline and professionalism. Leopold emphasized that Corina should be especially careful about her behavior, pointing out that she should prove her competence and reliability, not with words but with deeds. This moment was a reminder to Corina that the path to recognition in their harsh world is through working tirelessly, keeping their word and showing the highest level of responsibility for the tasks assigned. The next moment in their interaction was filled with surprise. Rena unexpectedly approached Leopold again, but this time with a proposal that differed sharply from the previous conversation. Her voice sounded calm and casual, as if she were suggesting something every day, but the substance of her words was explosive. She suggested the idea of overthrowing the king, which naturally caused a wave of indignation in Leopold. However, Corina, not embarrassed by his reaction, continued to develop her point. She emphasized that the king not only showed cruelty by expelling Leopold from the castle, but also showed his inability to govern the state by failing to deal with the threat posed by the cultists. According to her, such behavior of the ruler leaves no choice but to call for revolution. Corina argued that the current state of affairs requires drastic changes, emphasizing that a king who has shown himself to be a bad ruler does not deserve to remain on the throne. Her words were full of determination and challenge. They sounded like a call to action based on the conviction that the country should be governed more fairly and effectively. This moment was a test of their relationship and at the same time a point around which questions about loyalty, justice, and the future of their country began to swirl. Corina, who has become an unexpected voice of change, and Leopold, whose beliefs and loyalties have been called into question, find themselves on the brink of important decisions that could change not only their fates, but the fate of the entire country. Leopold inwardly shared Corina's view of the need for change in the kingdom, but his own background and family history seemed an insurmountable obstacle to realizing such ambitious plans. He was convinced that his past, marked by the stigma of betrayal, would not allow him to become a leader for others to follow. After all, as the son of a man accused of betrayal, he believed that he did not have the authority to gather around him the allies necessary to launch a revolution. However, Corina did not let that argument become an obstacle. With unwavering confidence, she declared that they would find a way to clear his father's name by claiming that the accusations against him were false. Her words sounded like thunder to Leopold. He was astonished and surprised at the same time, for until then, he could only guess that there were dark intrigues behind the scenes of his family's tragedy. Corina continued by revealing that according to her information, Father Leopold was deliberately set up by someone, making it look like he was trying to assassinate the king. This discovery was a shock to Leopold and a glimmer of hope at the same time. For the first time in a long time, he felt that the truth about his father could be recovered, and this gave him new strength and purpose. The moment Corina's words rang through the air, Leopold felt a sharp needle of skepticism pierce through his mind. Unanswered questions began to slowly hover in his mind, creating a fog of distrust and doubt. Why was this mysterious woman, Corina, willing to go to such extremes for his benefit? What unknown force moves her, allowing her to overcome such great obstacles in his favor? Leopold could not grasp the hidden threads that bound their destinies, and this puzzled him. Corina, as if reading his thoughts through the mask of impenetrability, revealed a part of her soul to him with her answer. She confessed that Leopold played an important role in her life, that he was important to her, that there was an invisible but strong bond between them. This confession made Leopold's heart beat faster, because earlier he could not even imagine that their relationship could have such depth and significance. But the mystery remained unsolved. Why couldn't Corina reveal all the cards? What was the mystery that kept her silent about the real reasons for acting on his behalf? Rena was silent about the fact that it was thanks to Leopold that she had a chance to return to her world, to her reality, which was so dear to her and yet so far away. This unknown bond between them seemed to be the key to unlocking the mystery of her origins and destiny. But Leopold had much more to learn and experience before he could fully understand the scope and depth of their relationship and the role he was destined to play in her life. Time like water flowed through their fingers, and now our heroes, Leopold and Corina, were leisurely making their way through a narrow, abandoned alley, which seemed to be hidden from prying eyes under the cover of oblivion. The path was not an easy one, for it led them to Manhwa, the same legendary information merchants whose name was spoken with trepidation and fear. Manhwa had a reputation shrouded in the darkness of secrets and rumors that blew winds to the farthest corners of their world. These merchants could sell or buy any secret that could exist under the sun. Corina, driven by a strong determination to provide irrefutable proof of her words, took Leopold step by step closer to the truth he so desperately sought. They both knew that Manhwa were not benefactors or guardians of knowledge for knowledge's sake. They were masters of bargaining for whom nothing sacred existed. The price of information in their world could range from a trifle to fabulous sums, and sometimes to a person's very soul. The more valuable the information, the higher the stakes, and some of those who dared to contact Manhwa paid the highest price, giving up pieces of their being, their essence. As they approached Shamua's house, the sense of tension and inevitability grew stronger. Each step echoed in the narrow alleyway, as if foreshadowing the outcome of long-forgotten mysteries. Leopold, despite his skepticism and inner doubts, felt his heart sink in anticipation of what was to be learned. Corina, on the other hand, seemed the epitome of determination and focus, willing to do anything to prove herself right and true to her words. And now, standing before the entrance to Shamua's lair, they were on the verge of discoveries that could change their lives forever. Were they ready to learn the price of the information they sought and the price they themselves would have to pay? This moment was a test of their souls and faith in each other, the beginning of a journey that could lead them either to salvation or to destruction. As soon as Corina and Leopold's footsteps crossed the threshold of Shamua's mysterious household, they were greeted by a young guy with a polite but cautious expression. This unknown guide, like a shadow, accompanied them through the intricate corridors, immersed in semi-darkness, filled with whispers of secrets and echoes of distant times. For Rena and Leopold, it was their first dive into a world where every step could mean a decisive turn of fate, a world where information weighed more than gold and secrets were kept stronger than the oldest treasures. Corina, despite all the mysteries and uncertainties that shrouded their journey, showed remarkable confidence that they were being led to the very center of chamois power, Claude Dubois. This man was more than just a figure in their world. He was a legend, laden with myths and rumors that made even the bravest shiver at the mention of his name. Claude Dubois, a master of the dark arts whose power and influence stretched far beyond ordinary understanding, had lived for more than 5 centuries, each filled with a quest for knowledge, power, and, it was rumored, eternal life. It was Claude Dubois who was behind the falsification of documents that slandered Father Leopold, exposing him to a heavy indictment. This act of manipulation has not only destroyed their family's reputation and life, but has forced Leopold to search for the truth in the darkest corners of his world. Among the people, Claude was called the Sinister Man for a reason. His name was synonymous with fear, power, and an unholy force capable of changing destinies and rewriting history at will. As they approached the end of their journey inside Chamois Castle, the sense of an imminent meeting with Claude Dubois grew, filling the air with heavy foreboding. Corina and Leopold, standing on the threshold of meeting the very embodiment of power and secrets that had long seemed out of reach, prepared to come face to face with a man capable of destroying or restoring justice to their destinies. In the novel, Claude is described as having blood-red eyes that, like mysterious lights, captivate the gaze of anyone who dares to delve into them. These eyes are not just beautiful, they carry an unfathomable depth, mystery, and power that could conquer or destroy worlds. Claude's hair, on the other hand, is exceptionally silver, reminiscent of moonlight, shimmering in all shades of silver at different angles of illumination. They add an aura of unattainability and grandeur, making his figure even more mysterious and attractive. On the other side of the story, Corina, meeting Claude Liv, feels a tension that grips her whole. Corina's emotions are bubbling up inside because encountering a personality like Claude does not leave one indifferent. Coming face to face with the most powerful black mage in the kingdom is a test that not everyone can stand firm. Her inner tension contrasts with Claude's outer calmness, who seemed to find peace in simple things like drinking tea. This contrast between the characters emphasizes their inner worlds and their different perceptions of the situation. Claude, despite his power and might, appears to the readers in a moment of relaxation and tranquility, showing that even the great ones can enjoy the simple pleasures of life. He stands as a symbol of control over one's own power and emotions, while Corina symbolizes the natural human reaction to the unknown and powerful. In an atmosphere filled with tension and uncertainty, Claude, suddenly diffusing the situation, let out a resounding laugh. His words, imbued with irony, traveled around the space, asserting that Corina's arrival was clearly not motivated by a desire to admire his presence. The weight of unspoken words and unresolved questions hung in the air as Corina resolved to resolve. With strength breaking through her tension, she made the demand on which her future and the entire kingdom depended. She sought irrefutable proof that the accusations of treachery against the Leopold family were nothing but slander. Her words, filled with determination and despair, sounded like a verdict on those who had dared to sully her family's honor. Corina demanded the blood of the one who had dared to slander her clan, for according to the laws of Shamua, it was the blood of the true traitor that was to be the pledge for the contract, the seal that would reinforce justice and restore lost honor. This moment was a test for all present, for the outcome of this meeting could have changed the course of history, restoring justice or plunging into even greater shadows of doubt and accusation.